Hello! There I am. Camouflage, that's what we call that. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our online academy. We're going to be talking about invertebrates. Invertebrates. Let's talk about the characteristics of an invertebrate. Well, before we do that, don't forget you can participate during our Aquarium Online Academy programs live while we're on the air. Today, Monday, 10 a.m., you can text us or have an adult help you text in at 562-286-1838, and we'll answer your questions live on the air to the best of our abilities. But if you're not watching live, don't worry. You can still ask us questions. Our email down here in the very bottom, live@lbaop.org. You can email us questions, and our educators will get back to you and help answer some more of your very complex science questions. Well, let's talk about the invertebrates. What do we know about invertebrates? Let's observe our jellies, because they count as one. What do you know about invertebrates? Now, that's a lot of stuff that we could list. Kind of gave you a weird question to start with, because guess what? 98% of all animal life on the planet is an invertebrate. So you could be here for days listing what you know. Don't worry, we don't have that much time. We're going to do what we can in 30 minutes to talk about this amazing group of animals, not just jellies, but the sea stars, the crabs and lobsters and things. Maybe some squid and octopus in there too. Like this one, giant Pacific octopus. So all these examples of a thing, why do they get grouped together? They're so different from each other. Why are they in the same group, though? They're all friends. Kai's response. Maybe they are. These jellies hang out pretty close together. Imagine if they didn't like each other, they wouldn't. I don't know. What is similar between all of those things? How can we put a jelly in the same group as a lobster? They're missing a particular part of their body. So when you look at a jelly, you look at a shrimp or a lobster, they're missing something that we have. No, it's not fingers. Brains! Lobsters actually have brains. Good guess, Guy. Okay, let's see. Well, lobster brains are also very small and very different from ours. But they don't have anything like a brain. What else? What do you think? What do we have in our body that they don't? A backbone. I knew you knew. Backbones, our spine. Our skeleton is on the inside. It gives us the ability to stand up, run around, dance if we want to. Our muscles move our skeleton around. But you don't have to have a skeleton to move. So that's not always the thing. So jellies, like lobster, like crabs, like things with shells, what are those? The clams, sea cucumbers, they're all missing the backbone. Because guess what? Lobsters actually have a skeleton. It's just on their outside. And so the same thing happens. Their muscles move their skeleton, but their skeleton's on the outside. So you don't have to have a skeleton to be an invertebrate or have to not have one. So they just don't have a backbone. That's the rule. They don't have a spinal column, so they're an invertebrate. We are vertebrates. So when you look at the big science word, invertebrate means no backbone. Vertebrate means you have a backbone. Well, that's the rule. So most of the animal life on the planet belongs to this group with no backbone. Well, let's take a look. I have some examples over on my camera. Let's check out some varieties of invertebrates. A smorgasbord of invertebrates. Too zoomed in to really see this smorgasbord. It's just s'mores. There we go. Let's change this light, because I have a special friend in the case that's hard to see with the light on. So this one, right here. This is a horseshoe crab. Let's try that. Does that help? Hey, that helps quite a bit. Change the lighting for you. So horseshoe crab, we got a barnacle. Barnacle, I'm pointing at the wrong one. This is a helmet snail. This is an abalone. Here's our plastic lobster friend. Don't worry, it's not real. Not real. We have a chitin. This one hard to see because it's too bright. Let's put it over here in the shadows on top of you, little friend. That is a sand dollar. All of these things are invertebrates. Invertebrates are extremely diverse. Very different things from everybody. Now, the only stuff I could put on this camera picture for you are stuff with some kind of shell material. I don't have a sea cucumber I can show you. It'd have to be a stuffed animal version. We don't have like a real one in here I could provide for you. So the things with shells are pretty easy to preserve and show off to our public. Or if you have fun plastic toys like this one, our lobster toy. Now the other thing is, remember we said there's lots of things in here. What if we add this animal? A sea star. Do sea stars have shells on their body? Do they have a backbone? They would have a very different body to have a backbone, wouldn't they? So not a backbone. Now the sea star is a special kind of animal. It's actually related to our sand dollar. Take this. So stars and sand dollars are cousins. Along with urchins, they're related to those things too. They belong in a special group called the Echinoderms, which means spiny skin. Maybe Miss Kaya will show us an example of an Echinoderm. Do these look related to... Miss Kaya, are you sure? She is 150% sure. Guess what? Echinoderms include sea cucumbers. They look like they have spiny skin, don't they? They're very sneaky. That's not actually spiny. They're actually very squishy. So echinoderm just means spiny skin, but doesn't mean they have true spines. Now this is not an echinoderm. That's a snail. But it's surrounded by echinoderms. So the echinoderms might have really spiny skin, like an urchin, or they might have just rough skin, like a sea star, or they're like a pancake urchin without spines. That's a sand dollar. But all the echinoderms have this rough textured skin. Now, it just kind of depends on what kind you have and some of their characteristics. So take a look at our tide pool coastal corner. Oh, the echinoderms. So many are in here. Can you spot them all? Try pointing them out. I see one right there. There's one right there. Oop. There's that sneaky cucumber pretending to be spiny, but really not spiny at all. So sometimes they have just rough skin. Sometimes they have pretend spiny skin. And sometimes they have very spiny skin like that urchin. So the echinoderms are all interesting. Now the cool thing is, out of all the invertebrates, the echinoderms, when you look at like the genetic tree of everything on the planet, the echinoderms of all the invertebrates are the closest to us. Because of how, Miss Kaya did not know this, because of how they develop as an embryo. So the way that their little bodies start out is more like us and less like everybody else. That's kind of cool, right? Now, we don't look quite like a star. I mean, kind of like when we're out like this, pretending to be Patrick's star. But otherwise, we don't look that much the same. But it's how we start, at the very start, when our cells start to grow. But the rest of the other organisms on the planet, the rest of the other living things, kind of start out a little bit different. And that's okay. Because remember, invertebrates are extremely diverse. There's so many kinds of invertebrates. Let's actually check out some more of the invertebrate friends. Who else can we show you besides echinoderms? The spiny skin ones. Who's that? Now this one, scientists think is so strangely different from everybody else. They're actually not sure exactly how they show up in the genetic tree of everybody. That's okay. They can be fun. They can be so different we have no idea how to classify them. That actually makes them really special. This is called an octopus. Octopus, squid, cuttlefish, and nautilus all belong to their own group, where they have no backbone either. They might have a shell, but they have no backbone. But they're very smart. Now this one is one of my favorites. It's about the length of your thumb. They're kind of chunky, but they're about the length of your thumb. They're not this, but they're so cool. They crawl around on their little tentacles up front. I think they're really cute. This is called a flamboyant cuttlefish. They're very colorful, and all of the cuttlefish, octopus, squid, not white nautilus. Nautilus don't do this, but the other three, they can super color change, camouflage, just like when I started the program. They can change the color of their skin very quickly. It's how they communicate with each other. It's also how they hunt. They might change their skin to hide. Can't see me. Or cuttlefish actually will have this fun light show like, ooh, hypnotizing you. And then they can eat their food because they've dazzled their food enough that they're very confused what's going on, and they can grab it. So they are very intelligent. They have very unique hunting practices to gather their prey. These are the cephalopods. Their tentacles and arms are attached to their head. That's how they get their name, because they're all just kind of like, there's tentacles and there's their face. If you had tentacles on your face, you kind of belong to this group. Kind of strange to think about, but also kind of fun. Ooh, babies. These are the baby flamboyant cuttlefish. Oh, coming in for a landing. They're so cute. Now, these babies, look at your pinky nail. Right now, when these are on the camera, they're smaller than your pinky nail. They're pretty tiny when they're first hatched. Watch. Ooh, there's that one crawling. I love when they do that. They can swim. They have a fin around the side of the body that helps them swim. Cuttlefish have a big fin. Some of the squid have a big fin that goes around their sides. Octopus don't have that. Octopus are not the swimmers of this group of animals. But they all share some characteristics. Remember, tentacles on their face. They have the ability to color change. And some of them can swim, but not all of them can swim. Well, an octopus kind of swims. It doesn't swim as much as some of the others do, but it kind of swims. It can move. You can do more than just crawl around with these suction cups. Now, let's show you a little bit of the color changing abilities, because that's actually really, really fun. They have these special cells in their skin that can color change. Imagine if you could change colors to show your emotions, to communicate. That would be so interesting. They can change colors very quickly, not only just for camouflage, but here's some camouflage going on. And time to disappear. That's so cool. They can try and copy or mimic the stuff around them, pretend to be the same stuff that they're sitting on top of. Now here's it's paused right after they started color changing, but you can see that they're halfway between changing the texture of their skin. Normally an octopus has very smooth skin, but they can change the texture of the skin. They can change the color of their skin to hide. Can we change our skin texture? Some people can actually raise their goosebumps on their own, but goosebumps, when we're cold, that's little muscles in our skin sticking the hairs up, but it makes little bumps show up. Imagine you could make big bumps, super textures. Man, that would make hide and seek really, really fun. Make it very challenging, but it'd make it very fun. So check that out. That octopus squirted out some ink as it was trying to hide among the rocks. Now, it's not like, oh, well, I can still see you. Well, sometimes that ink is actually very gooey and mucusy, and so it can get stuck on the predator that's trying to grab them and try to get it off, and then it distracts them from trying to capture the octopus. Where's our octopus friend, Miss Kaya? Did you all find it? Point to the screen. Where's our octopus friend? Maybe I was covering it up. Oh, there you are. Did you guess correctly? That's how fast they can change their texture and their color. That was not sped up for us. That's the real-time effect of how quickly they can do that. That's really cool. We do have a video of Groot camouflaging. So Groot is our current giant Pacific octopus. Groot's like, you know what? I'm out. I'm going to go down here. Now, you saw the other pictures and videos. Giant Pacific octopus are normally very dark red. But Groot is trying to pretend to be part of the rocks. So it can change its color, kind of like a rock, change its texture. So camouflage can either work where you look exactly like what you're sitting on. Can't see me. Or it changes it so you can't recognize the outline of where the animal is. So even though it doesn't perfectly look like a rock, if you're in darker, cloudier water, you're a predator trying to find something, if it breaks up their outline so it doesn't quite look like an octopus shape, that's camouflage. That works out really well too. Oh, man. Now, octopus are my favorite things to talk about in here, but we should probably talk about more invertebrates, shouldn't we? Well, let's go back to our jelly cam, because jellies are really, really interesting. Jellies have been on the planet for a very long time. And even without so many other body parts that other animals have, like brains and eyes and suction cups or spiny skin, they do very well. It's actually not awfully difficult to have lots of jellies be born here at the aquarium. So we actually have a jelly, what's called propagation. It's like a jelly growth lab where we can grow jellies. And as long as we keep the exhibits clean, they're fed well, we can get new jellies to be born here, which is kind of cool because we'll need jellies for our exhibits for you to enjoy, but jellies don't live a super long time. That's unfortunate, but that is part of their life cycle, is that in this part of their life, when they're this big, blobby, floating thing, they don't live too long. That's the sad part, but we are able to grow so many jellies here, we are able to show off some really fun ones for you. Now, sometimes we have extra jelly cams, but otherwise, you might have to take a trip to the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach to see all the cool jellies that we offer here. Now, jellies in general have one particular characteristic. They're squishy. Bloop, bloop. Some of them have really stingy tentacles, like the previous ones, the nettles. They can hurt. This one does not. This is a spotted lagoon jelly. They actually have little algae that live in their body to help provide food for them. That's an interesting adaptation. If there's not enough plankton for it to find and run into because they can't hunt and chase their food, true jellies have to wait and bump into their food. That's unfortunate. But they don't have such a huge diet like a sea otter that it's going to harm them. So if they can drift around, catch some food, that's great. But if there's not enough food to catch, this kind of jelly is using a similar adaptation to their cousin, the corals. They have something in their body helping grow food for them. That's pretty cool. Their cousins, the corals, look like this. How are these the same animal? Well, not the same animal, but they're in the same group. This looks very different. Well, if you look at corals, anemones, and jellies, they all have essentially the same kind of body, just in different directions and sizes. So remember jellies like this? Bloop. Pretend your hand's a jelly. Bloop, 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 bloop. You flip it this way, it's an anemone. You shrink it down, it's a coral. So they all have a similar body design, just in a different direction or in a different design. So this coral skeleton, corals release a stony skeleton out of their body to create a coral reef. And it takes a long time for this to work. Coral may only grow a centimeter a year. So everybody give me a pinky, like a pinky swear. That might be 1 centimeter wide, width of your finger. Some of these coral only grow that much per year. Other coral can grow faster. So some coral might grow inches a year. It just depends on the species, but a lot of them are not growing many inches. They might grow 1 inch at most. Now you can kind of see on this coral body, this is very similar to those anemones, isn't it? You can see all those little tentacles sticking up. Can you spot the mouths of a coral? There's one. Right there. So remember, inside the middle of the anemone is the mouth. Flip your hand over, there's a jelly. There's the mouth. Shrink it down. There's the mouth of the coral. So very similar bodies, just in different orientations, upward, downward. Or, if you're like a coral, you get to grow a hard shell with stone. That's pretty interesting. Now, they all belong to the same group because of one key feature. They sting their food with these little tentacles right there. So stinging cells on their tentacles are why we've grouped them together into one family. Well, I'm not sure if it's family, but one group anyways. And for that reason, they get to be in the same grouping. Some of them sting worse than others. Some of them don't really hardly hurt at all. We actually have a touch lab here for moon jellies. Moon jellies actually live most places of the world. This is a moon jelly right here. Their sting we cannot feel. They do have to sting their food. All jellies sting their prey in order to eat it. They have to catch it. Remember, they have to bump into food. They can't just chase after it and go grab something. Imagine if we blindfolded you, put you at a buffet. You'd have to bump into the food in order to find it and catch it. But if you don't bump into it, you don't get to eat it. That's the life of a jelly. That's the life of a coral, but they have to wait for the food to bump into them. So it's challenging to be such a simple life form, but they have some really unique adaptations to help them out. One of my favorite things to tell people about jellies, I'm going to set this coral down. One of my favorite things to tell people about jellies is that, remember, they don't have a brain. They can't think about stuff. Not like, okay, so at like 11 o'clock I have that appointment. I'm not going to do that. But they can figure out that they're upside down. How does that work? Well, they have this fun cell in their body, very tiny, not this big, it's very small. And there's a little crystal inside, and where it moves, they can tell if they're upside down or not. It's kind of like our ears. If you spin around in circles, I'm not going to do it because I get dizzy very quickly. You don't have to do it either, it's okay. If you spin around in circles, it still feels like you're moving. That's because in our inner ear, there's a special little organ that helps us understand that we're moving around. Well, they have something in their body that helps them understand that they're upside down or not. But remember, they don't have a brain to be like, oh, I'm upside down, I got to flip over. They just realize they are, but it's not that they're making choices about it. The other fun thing, look on this one right here. Now, you see where the edges kind of do this almost like wave row? Everywhere it indents in there, there is a little eye spot. So it can sense the light, but it can't see stuff. You want to try seeing things like a jelly does? All right. Everybody close your eyes. It's actually still very bright in here because of the studio. All right. Our eyes are closed, right? No peeking. Our eyes are closed. If you put your hand over your eye, is it brighter or darker? It's darker. We are blocking light from getting to our eyes. That's about as much as a jelly can see. Light, dark. That's it. All right, take your hands up. Open your eyes. So jellies don't really see the things. True jellies, anyways. Box jellies are not a true jelly. But they do have some other special adaptations. We'll just stick with the true jellies for now because they all share the same adaptations. It's pretty cool. Now, there's another fun group of these things. Do you know what this one is? It looks like we didn't Photoshop this. I didn't paint this. This is a real animal. How about that one? Now this one's a sea cucumber, I believe. I think the other one was a nudibranch. This one. And its head is that way. It's like hanging from this piece of coral. It's going that way. So we have other soft-bodied animals just called mollusks. It's a very big group within the even bigger group of invertebrates. So mollusk just means they have soft bodies. They look so squishy. They are squishy, although this thing, it might only be about that big. A lot of this kind of mollusk are not super big. That's okay. Some of their cousins, the sea hares, though, they can get pretty big. Now, snails come in lots of sizes. This cowrie snail, actually this particular one might only be about an inch. But remember I had a snail shell on our camera. This is a snail shell. This is a pretty big snail. This is not even the biggest that this snail can get. This helmet snail can get a shell that long and that tall. That's a big snail. Snails actually come in a wide range of sizes and shapes and abilities. Other snails called cone snails, pretty dangerous. Their sting from their special mouth part can harm people. It's used to hunt animals that come up to them, too close to them, but it's strong enough it can actually hurt large animals. Some snails don't have any of those abilities. Other snails we see like in our garden or on a walk. At least if you're down here in Southern California, we get those garden snails out on the sidewalk pretty often. So snails have some pretty interesting varieties to themselves too. And then there's this. So this is the whelk. This is actually a carnivorous snail. It eats other snails. It's a dangerous world out there for snails, I guess. So some snails eat other snails, and then some other snails are herbivores. They only eat the algae kind of stuff sitting around. And then there's other snails like this one that are special because this is an abalone. Now, abalone, at some point, might actually be the prey for a whelk. Depends how big the whelk is. Abalone are like this. They're big, kind of flat snails with these very pretty shells. The insides of their shells are very colorful and pretty, which is kind of why they're endangered. Originally, it was because people were feeding on snails. Or not snails. Well, yeah, they're snails. Feeding on abalone. Abalone is considered a very good food for a lot of people. But if we overfish them, if we take too many out of the ocean, then there's not enough left to hang out and do the things that they need to do in the ocean. They help clean up the algae. They're like little algae lawnmowers, but they just move very slowly. They scrape the algae off the rocks so you can eat it, which is helpful because now there's new landing zones for other plankton babies to land onto and grow into new things. So abalone are important. They help clean off the rocks, start the cycle over for new things to grow. And this one is actually a white abalone. White abalone are part of a project we are doing here with a few other institutions to help them. Actually, I think this one's these are the greens or the reds. I can't tell. The color you see in the shell does not tell you what kind it is. The color is actually what they were eating. That's actually kind of cool. So if they eat a lot of green algae or greenish brown algae, they get green on their shells. If they're eating a lot of this red crustose algae, their shells are kind of pink. But it doesn't work for every abalone, but a lot of them do that. You can actually see color changes and stripes in their shell based on what they were eating when they were around a certain algae at what age. That's kind of fun. It kind of just comes out in their shell. But the white abalone, we are trying to help repopulate because there's not enough of them out there. If they're spread out too far, they're not going to be able to find each other to have babies because they don't swim. They're not going to just like pop off and like, go find other abalone. They don't do that. They crawl very slowly. So if there's too few of them too far apart, they can't have as many babies. So if we help repopulate white abalone, put more of them in the ocean, we can help them recover and repopulate their area. That's pretty cool. Now I have one last example of an invertebrate to show you that's going to hopefully blow your minds. This model of a lobster is related to this barnacle. How does that work? I've been showing you some fun cousins today, all class. Imagine this lobster was much smaller and fit in this shell. That's how it works. Barnacles belong to the same group as lobsters, crabs. What else is in there? They're all crustaceans. They belong to this supergroup called the arthropods. So imagine all the creepy crawly things like insects, spiders, horseshoe crabs. Oh, here. Well, we found a different kind of crab. So this one too. This one, I think this might be a king crab. I don't know if it's a spider crab. But these are all related because of their bodies. So they have these jointed legs. Look at those fun legs. They have these jointed legs, and for barnacles, they're the same thing, but they're small, and they fit inside this little shell. Now, the funny thing about them is that when they land somewhere as an embryo, they glue their forehead down to the rock, and then they grow this shell around their tail. So imagine like they're sticking up this way. Forehead's glued to the rock, essentially. Their legs stick this way, and their legs filter their food out. Their legs have these special little fans on them that they can grab the food that stick out the back of this shell. So spider crabs, barnacles, lobsters, they all belong to the same group, but just because they live in a weird little shell compared to this one doesn't mean that they won't be related. As we learn more about our oceans, we start to learn more about all the different kinds of characteristics our ocean life has and who's actually related to whom. How do we understand what makes these two special and different from the other organisms, living things in our ocean, is one of the things I love about marine science. There's always learning something fun and new. Well, thank you everybody for hanging out, learning all about the invertebrates with me. We didn't get to every kind of invertebrate. Remember, there's a lot of them. So your challenge, go learn some more. Check out our website. We have lots of fun things to learn about our animals here at the aquarium, other animals out in the ocean. So learn more about the invertebrates and share all the fun things you learned today with your friends. You can also tune in again on Wednesday. We'll have programs at 9 and 10 a.m. 10 a.m. will be our Spanish language, or no, not our Spanish language program like normal, but the next week we'll have our Spanish language programming back. So tune in again on Wednesday for our Aquarium Online Academy. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy your Monday.